It is week 7, the penultimate week of the container, which I'm just buzzing about. I feel like we have gone on this really beautiful journey, really deepening into a wide range of topics that all link back to what it means to tend to ourselves somatically, to tend to ourselves and be aware of what's coming up within the body, to slow and be, but in a way that feels welcomed, to allow for whatever's there to come up, to move with that and through that. And so this week is all about contraction and expansion through business, work, creativity, and what that looks like for you. I will be speaking to this generally as possible, but know that everybody here is doing very different things, and what comes up for one woman won't come up for another woman. How one woman is showing up online, for example, with her business, may mean that another woman is not showing up online with her business right now or has ever done so. And so there's a real wide range of what might be going on here. And I don't know exactly who and what I'm speaking to. So I'm going to be general with it. I'm going to talk to it generally, and then you can take what you want and leave the rest. And on Saturday, we're going to land together and just be with what contraction and expansion can feel like in the body when talking about sharing from that creative, rooted business space. So it's a little bit like talking about money and how we make money and how that's linked in, but in a way that's just sort of really talking about how we put ourselves out there with what we do. And when we put ourselves out there, it doesn't matter whether you're putting yourself out there through just your a general corporate job, a general job where you're working for somebody else, or whether you're doing something for yourself. You're always having to put yourself out there. You're always having to put yourself into a space of being received, and you're always going to have to be able to tend to your body and tend to what's coming up there, that it feels good in your body. And so when you acknowledge that and when you're with that, then generally that will show and radiate outwardly and allow for the tending that comes through motherhood, through seeing your children find joy, and then showing them and encouraging them to see what it looks like when you work and feel that beautiful, energetic, lit up energy versus the drudge, the challenge, the that work is just to make ends meet. And each to their own with their own feelings about that. I just have this real passion and belief that I would love my children to feel that at the end of this childhood, that when they are in a place of looking to work, that they see that there are so many ways of creating and that it needs to feel good in the body. I just so wish so many times I look back and just look at the trajectory of where my career went, and I was not in tune with my body and not in tune with the contraction and not in tune with what I needed. And I went about it so not wrong. Wrong is the wrong term, but I wish I'd gone about it in a way that allowed for more creativity, more space, and more acknowledgement of who I am and how I can actually make money from who I am, being received with who I am without having to put myself in scenarios that aren't and were never welcomed, and created essentially burnout and just general lack of joy and pleasure. So today I'm going to talk about specifically in this video, just so that we're covering it, being online and putting ourselves and our businesses online. And I talk from a place of real acknowledgement of what this looks like, having gone through a real journey with it over the years and having tried quite a few platforms. And I'm actually somebody who is really good at accessing different platforms and being aware of how they can work for people and finding my place and space online. And also knowing that I always want to pivot and I always want to find myself on certain platforms, and still can't seem to find myself on those platforms that I really, really want to be with to make the money from those platforms versus certain other platforms, and know that this is an ongoing process and that it will come, and I trust that it will come. So I just really want to speak to how we place ourselves online, because we are in an online world and you generally do need a website at the very least, sometimes, often, or at least some level of uh, newsletter space, or maybe it's a Substack space now, or maybe it's a social media platform. You do probably have one of those, right? Like unless you're doing something that's completely word of mouth, then you do need to have one of those. And if your work is creative, then you'll probably have your work somewhere. It will be seen somewhere. You are having to receive and you are having to expand and show up in some way, somewhere. So just applying what I'm saying to wherever it is that you're showing up for yourself and your business and your creativity and your work. Just taking that and rolling with what I'm sharing here. So the online world can really amplify dysregulation and inspiration. And it is a challenging space to be with. And we are in it quite a lot every day, or at least every week in some form, whatever that looks like, whether it's because you're sharing or whether it's because you're receiving the work from others and you're looking and keeping up with what else is going on. And we are not, our nervous systems are not cut out for this. Our nervous systems are not cut out to be always on, always having to keep up with what's happening, whether it's world events, whether it's somebody else's work, whether it's being sold something else. Our nervous systems are not actually cut out to be able to deal with the consistent output that online presents. And we are very confused about this world, and it moves faster than we have the ability to hold on with. Like AI, for example, that's come out can be a blessing and can be a real curse. And there's so many things around AI and chat GPT and all of this chat. Um, and our children are in a world that we won't be able to see now. It will change drastically. And we can only look at that because we were in that era where the online world wasn't what it was and was nothing. Like I just remember there being the odd computer in the odd classroom when I was at school. And now we're here where everyone's got a phone and a tablet or whatever else at school. And so I'm finding it really challenging to keep up with the online world myself and be able to shield my children, I suppose, from it, levels of it, but also to allow for them to see that the online world presents opportunities for them if it's used consciously. So how do we consciously use social media or the internet in general, this place that exists now where we can do and create whole businesses from that was never there before. How do we do that? But really, how we do that is by honoring our contraction and expansion and being with how both are sacred and both are welcomed and both are necessary for you to be able to continue to show yourself and your children what is capable from this online world. And when we are visible, we will often go into a response of some sort if that visibility feels too much at certain moments. So we welcome that contraction when there is that contraction because it is a survival mechanism that's coming into place. You feel under threat, you feel like you need to survive from this visibility. Like in the wild, the animals will be hiding, and finding ways of hiding, and then they'll come out and be visible at certain times when it's safe to do so. What happens in the online world is we share something and we don't know where it's going to go. We don't know how far the reach will be. We don't know who will see it. We don't know how it will be received. We don't know how it will be perceived. And we don't know if, for example, friends or family members who we saw as a safe place suddenly become and feel unsafe because how they received your words or your work or saw what you were doing or saw what you were creating didn't feel in alignment with them or felt a projection or felt they had to say something that didn't feel welcomed, and then you end up in this freeze or fawn or flight. So we come back to the nervous system ladder here and look at where we are on that nervous system ladder. And we also come back to this ability to receive and to be in being seen with those beautiful edges that we spoke about. And so when we're sharing online and when we're sharing our work and when we're presenting our work to others, we have to acknowledge that to be visible and to be seen can be a lot. And the body's response to that can be that we want to contract and we want to come back into ourselves. And rather than seeing that as this like negative, we see that as a positive. Is this contraction where we take ourselves back into our bodies and give ourselves this time actually simply an honoring of the sacred pause? And if we bypass that by continuing to post or share or push forward something, how do we acknowledge that we have our edges and we stay within our edges? So a really good example is if we are in this clear creative flow and everything's moving and everything feels good and you're sharing, and then someone says something to you. Someone says something to you. It could be a comment, a DM, a friend, a family member. It could be an acquaintance that someone you're like, you kind of know, and then they suddenly feel they need to say something to you. Or it could be that you put your creative work out there and there's something that's said to you. And it could be positive or it could be negative. Either way, you're suddenly being seen. And it's very easy to uh, be carrying on, and not really acknowledging that you're truly being seen. And that can also bring up things. But then when there's this element of, oh, I'm really being seen now, we have to sit with what that feels like. So it may then boost your expansion and your creative flow and continue to share and continue to build from that feedback. Or the feedback loop might exist where you have been sharing and you have been in your flow, and then suddenly there's contraction and you want to spiral back into yourself because you're overwhelmed, your nervous system is overwhelmed. And this can also be linked to events that exist in society and within your space, within your home, um, within the world, where it doesn't feel safe and it doesn't feel necessary to share certain aspects of your world, your space, your business, because something's going on in the world that is dysregulating enough, and all you're seeing is that, and it feels like you can't be in your creative flow. So how do you protect that and be with that when that happens? And so I really love to just speak to the pauses, what they give you, and how they're not negative in any which way, shape, or form. They can be so welcomed. But how do you move from the freeze, the fawning, that I can't post about that? I want to start talking about something new. I want to start creating something new, but I want to keep talking about what I want to talk about, but I want to talk about it through a more political lens. Oh, but if I do that, then I'm going to be received in certain ways through whichever one of those is feeling necessary for you to share from. So I'm always going to say it, but you have to really acknowledge what it means to come back to your nervous system when you are wanting to create and move and be with something. Because without the nervous system and the acknowledgement of where you're swinging, the pendulum swing of that, then you're not going to be able to share from an authentic space. You're not going to be able to share from a space that feels like you're going to be received. And if a single comment comes or something negative comes, you're not in that regulated state enough. You're not resourced enough to be able to tend to yourself with more ease. If we are resourced, then when we share from that space of resource, when something comes back in that feedback loop that might feel negative, we can tend to ourselves with more ease. And therefore, we can contract for a moment rather than a longer period of time. And also to acknowledge that sometimes longer period times are welcomed. So, where do you share? And what do you do when you are in a space of contraction? while still feeling like you're doing work and business and creativity and not just freezing completely and unable to do anything with what you want to create. I will say that for my work that I've been doing and to be able to be here today and sharing with you this container has taken all of me and some. And I say that without being able to go into all of it, but in a way that I'd love you to really understand that deeply, truly, the sacred pauses are welcomed, and it's how you utilize those sacred pauses to come back. I had a sacred pause. I had a deep, deep contracting moment in October last year, and it allowed me to finally create this container that you see and you've been part of for the last few weeks. If that sacred pause hadn't have happened, I would have continued on the trajectory that I was, and I wouldn't have created this, and I wouldn't have impacted other women in this space. And so, what I see really beautifully is that the universe also, the divine, is also reminding you of your worth and your needs, and will encourage you to align with how business needs to flow for you, how your creativity needs to flow for you. And if that is not online, then it might be other routes and avenues. So when we are showing up online, there's loads of ways of doing this. It could be through social media, like your Facebook, your Instagram, um, and those are really, or TikTok, those are really your main social media platforms that exist today that I see the majority of people utilize. And those are instant feedback loops. Those are instant contraction, challenging spaces to be in because you can look at the metrics, you can look at the how it's received, and you can instantly have a video that spirals or a post that spirals positively and negatively. So those require some really stretchy nervous system work, I would say, social media. I have utilized social media for a long time for work through a creative business that I ran and through this work that I do now. I'm also censored on there a lot, and my work doesn't flow as easy as it could on those platforms. And I've looked a lot around how we utilize business without social media completely. I've done course in that and so on and so forth. I'm really passionate about that chat, though at the moment I've had to come back to being online because and on social media because I had to find my voice again. And so the contraction gave me a space and time to acknowledge how I could utilize social media for me rather than getting absorbed by social media. And then I also had a scenario on TikTok. I have 50,000 people following my TikTok, but they don't mean anything because they came from a viral video that was both equally received positively and negatively. And I learned then how important it is to be prepared for the contraction and the expansion, but also the expansion in that you have your shit down, you have your shit in place to make money, to make the money from something that goes viral or something that gets at that level of expansion. Because if your ducks aren't in a row and you don't have what's in place to receive fully from that video, i.e., to sell something from that video, to find clients from that video, then there's no point in being and just posting for the sake of it. So when I went viral for that video hit, I don't know, it's on like 4 million views at this point. But at the time it hit a million within a weekend. But I wasn't selling anything and I could have sold something from that video. Imagine if out of those million views, I had 100 people who decided to click and pay for something that was 50 quid. I could have made just something from it, but I had nothing. I wasn't selling anything. I was just spouting my beliefs about all things vagina. And there was nowhere for them to go. There was nothing for them to instantly buy. There was no service in place. There was nothing there for them to to follow on from. Apart from my email, and I did have a few people click on my email. So what I'm saying is it's like we do all this stuff and we feel like we should be posting online, but making sure at the same time that we have on social media, I'm talking about, making sure that we have something that people are clicking on and are being taken to so that it's worth that expansion of going online in the first place. And then we have things like our email newsletters, and Substack is a really beautiful platform for people to utilize now, and you can make money from Substack. Um, I really, really love Substack, and I'd love to just predominantly be on Substack and YouTube. YouTube will always be long form content. People are going back to long form content. Our nervous systems are not equipped for 1 minute videos, making them, posting them, creating them in this like format that feels really dysregulating. People want long form and will continue to want long form. So I've gone back to more long form where possible. Part of this container is about long form. You have to sit and watch a 20-minute video and then we sit for 2 hours. Like we want long form, really. It's just that the society is making us feel like we don't have time for long form. So I've gone and started watching more YouTube, predominantly around van life, because that's where I'm going to be, is living in a van. So I want to understand van life. And I'm enjoying watching long form and learning from that space of slower, more intricative, kind of gentle vibes, I suppose. So YouTube will always be there and great for SEO, backlinking to your website, and having blog posts. And then you have your website where we forget how important our website can be in simply showing up there and recreating that and tending to the website, making it look fucking great, and adding blog posts and adding the products there and doing one thing really well, selling one thing really well, creating one new thing really well, and focusing on that for a long time and recreating it and looking at it and not dismissing it if it doesn't sell straight away on social media or because it's on your website. It's keeping going, keeping going, keeping going. One thing, $1 million offer is a few money people will speak to. How do you sell one thing really, really well? How do you sell one service, one product really, really, really well? And as a result of consistently turning it into gold by acknowledging how creative you can be with it and how expansive it can be for others, and how you then expand into it by deepening into what it is that you're offering and why you're offering it. That's the joy of being able to show up while people don't buy anything. I have to see it. I can't remember how many times. I think it's like 7 times to even acknowledge it exists. So knowing that when you shout about something and speak about something, most people won't have seen it and most people won't have understood it. So you're never ever going to be sharing the same thing too much, which is such a gift because you can just repurpose content. And repurposing content is such an easy, beautiful way of being expansive online. Content that you know that works and just recreating it, whether that's reposting things that you've already posted, whether that's waking up in the morning and going, well, I'd like to talk about this, but I did this really great post. Oh, I can't reshare that. No, you can. Oh, you absolutely can reshare it. That's great. I think people forget about the resharing. I've been going back through my TikTok videos and the ones that didn't get red flags. I've been resharing those on TikTok so that I don't have to recreate often. And we can also write one email and that can be recreated through so many things. I often create an email and then recreate an Instagram thing from it. And I sometimes then will recreate that on a more personal level for Substack and I can create a TikTok on it. And that content will be there. And I can also create a blog post on it. So those things are there. The other place I really like to speak to that I love and adore is Pinterest, and I think it's underused. I started dipping my toe more into Pinterest and having what it looks like to create clickable pins so that I could go, that people could uh, go through onto my website through it. And that's where my focus tends to be, is trying to at the moment learn and acknowledge how I can be online, but without having to be just on social media. So when I did this marketing without social media, we talked about not necessarily the nervous system as such, but we talked about how we can contact clients through email, send snail mail once again, be creative with how we're outreaching, send wellness packages to clients that we've worked with, or just cards, and how we can utilize our newsletters and so on and so forth, rather than feeling like we have to create for social media. And I always remember her name is Alexandra Franzen, and she is a writer, an author, vibes and supports other authors to be seen. And I really love her. She's a real beautiful soul with the heart of gold, and I really value her emails when they do come, because she always says that when you write an email, you always write it and you give something. It's always like when you're writing an email, you give something. And people do say to me, not often, but sometimes people will say, I really like your emails. I like the way your emails show up for me. And that's partly, I partly attest to the work I did with Alexandra Franzen on how we utilize our emails, um, to always bring something joyful to those who are reading them. So when I feel that need to contract and tend to myself, when I'm looking at all these platforms and all these ways I could be sharing for my business and feel overwhelmed by that, then I allow for the contraction and I allow for the sacred pause. And I be with what it means to tend to myself without chastising. And I can do that now. I can have pauses on social media for months and not feel guilt about it, because what I'm doing is I'm creating other work elsewhere and showing up elsewhere. Or maybe I'm not, because I don't need to be doing that. Maybe I was like last year, at the beginning of last year, I was tending to mothers and doulaing and really being in that space and didn't need to be online as much. Clients were coming to me and I didn't need to show up. But then I wanted my business to come back online and show up through courses and this space that I was creating. So I needed to come back online. And it's always going to be there for you to pick up. It is a bit of a like, you have to like swim again to sort of like get it going, but it's always there. And people who know that you're there will come back and will reach out to you. So sacred pauses are welcomed and necessary for that creative flow. So this week's invitation is to really track your online habits and be with your body's responses. So if you're somebody who is on social media, what comes up for you when you post? If you're somebody who is on social media but isn't posting at the moment, what's coming up for you with social media in general? Where do you want to be posting? What do you want to create online? How do you want to be received and seen? And really just thinking about that for a moment this week. Nothing more, you can journal on it if you want. We have the journaling prompts at the beginning that I shared that are still there in your PDF for you to be with. But just really being from that space of tracking how it feels when you think about being online and being seen in your work, in your creativity, and in your business. And then think about, okay, when I do want to expand and when I want to expand myself and my work and my creativity, who are you expanding for? Who and why? And just really be from that space of acknowledgement. I just believe passionately that we don't have to, as with parenting and mothering, and with work and business, and with our relationships and intimacy, we don't have to be trading our regulation, which is what's sold to us, to be visible and to be seen and to be paid and to be doing what we want to do. It can be built from the pace of your body. And that pace is yours, it's nobody else's. So I'm sending so much love, and I look forward to chatting about this even more on Saturday.